We explain the educational pursuits of medieval Europe. As life began to settle down in Europe in terms of increased trade, settled political boundaries, and open bridge of culture with the East in the late Middle Ages, people also became interested in rebuilding the Greek and Roman system of education they had lost, especially desired as more and more traders and pilgrims came into contact with the scholarly pursuits of Islam, India, Africa, and China. Rulers found it easier to rule a kingdom and deal with foreign powers if they were surrounded by educated people. Charlemagne was one of the first Western kings to push for education due to his own lack of ability to write. He set up palace schools and universities and brought in scholars like Alcuin to translate texts and tutor the court. Monasteries and convents also kept the flame of learning alive, with monks and nuns sitting in scriptorium as a holy duty, copying books from the vast libraries contained in their order. They served as tutors and also taught Latin and Greek. By the thousands, those church schools were merging into universities, which also led to teacher training programs and guild-like standards of how to become a teacher. Some schools offered specific learning, like medicine at Salerno or law in Bologna. Oxford came about in 1096. According to many texts, it also gave birth to the student services industry. A college student's day consisted of memorizing Latin texts in math, astronomy, grammar, music, rhetoric, and logic from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., broken up by prayer and mealtimes. Oral exams proved knowledge, passing through the bachelor's to the master's to be able to become a teacher. Women were left out of most of these opportunities and found basic education available at convents. Early women's rights advocates like Christine de Pizan began questioning this inequality of education. Much of the knowledge being taught had been a renewal of information from Greece and Rome that had been lost in the Dark Age invasions, but preserved by Islamic scholars. Aristotle was reintroduced, which means his ideas of observing, questioning, testing, and concluding came back to Europe. Many saw this as an undermining of Christianity and a questioning of God. To answer these charges, philosophers like Thomas Aquinas, Averroes, and Maimonides took up scholasticism, a way of bridging science and faith by showing that in all natural law and order, one can find the hand of God. Just because one has faith, it doesn't mean they lose reason. Governments, therefore, should base their decisions on natural law and morality, and good people must learn not to obey immoral governments. It's very similar to the mandate of heaven. Europeans began restudying the math of Euclid, the medicine of Hippocrates, and the Socratic method. Scholars pushed for Arabic numerals and a new framework for writing capital and lowercase letters, and the availability of more books. However, the church was still the dominant force in Europe in the late Middle Ages, and most people still saw scientific advancement as heresy and against the plan of God. There were deep punishments for heresy in writing, and many scholars did not want to face the wrath of the church.